78 years old is not the age to expect a trick from your own daughter. I'd lived long enough to distrust bankers, politicians, and used car salesmen, but merit? Well, I guess I was naive. My name is Freeland Beckett. Yeah, weird name, I know. My mother was an idealist who believed in freedom in all its forms. Ironically, now I feel like a prisoner in my own home in my own body. Parma was never a big city, but it always seemed cozy to me. I moved here almost 45 years ago when I got a job as a lead civil engineer in a city department. Eleanor, my late wife, and I bought this house on Clover Street, a small one with a white picket fence and a garden where she grew roses. Now, the roses are feral and the fence needs painting. Hands are not the same and there's not much point. Eleanor died 7 years ago. Cancer. Quickly and ruthlessly. She was the best part of me, ironed out all my sharp edges. After her death, the house emptied and I became even more withdrawn. Our daughter Merritt visited me for the first few months almost every week, then once a month, and in recent years I've only seen her on major holidays. Merritt is 46. She works as an insurance appraiser, drives a silver Volvo, and wears impeccably ironed blouses. She always has a perfect manicure and smells lightly of expensive perfume. She resembles her mother outwardly, but in character. All of me, with all of my faults and none of my virtues. Tough, rational, always knows what's best for others. "Dad, you need to sell the house," she said on every visit. "There are too many stairs. You need something one story closer to us." Closer to them means that sterile Sunny Acres retirement condominium where it smells of antiseptic and hopelessness, where old people play bingo and discuss their illnesses, where I would be looked after and controlled. I've always said no. This house is the last thing that ties me to Eleanor. Here, every crack in the wall has a story. Every creaking floorboard is like an old friend. And I'm still perfectly capable of taking care of myself, damn it. Harlan, Merritt's husband, has never hidden his impatience with me. He's 6 years younger than my daughter, works in real estate, and always looks at my house with an appraising eye. To him, I'm not a father-in-law, but an expired asset. "Look at this neighborhood, Freeland," he said on his last Thanksgiving visit. "Prices are going up every month. You're sitting on a gold mine." "What am I supposed to do with the money, Harlan?" I asked. "Buy myself some new knees." He laughed as if I was joking, but I wasn't joking. My knees are a disaster. The right one is worse than the left. And my heart, well, my heart is the main problem. 3 months ago, Dr. Lowell told me the valve needed to be replaced, and soon. "Without surgery, you might have a year, maybe less," he said, looking at me over his glasses. "With surgery, another 15 to 20 years of quality life. My insurance didn't cover the full cost of the surgery. I'd have to pay $27,000 extra. I had savings, not as much as I would have liked, but enough for the surgery. I'd been saving for years, saving for everything but books. The money was in a special account, untouched since I'd retired 15 years ago. I hadn't told Merritt about the diagnosis. I didn't want to give her another reason to insist on selling the house, but she must have suspected something because she started visiting me more often. Or so I thought. "You look pale, Daddy," she said a month ago when she dropped by unannounced on a Saturday morning. "Are you sure you're feeling all right?" "Just old age," I replied. "Nothing out of the ordinary." She looked around, looked in the refrigerator, wrinkled her nose. "I could send a housekeeper over," she suggested. "Once a week. She'd cook, clean." "I don't need another woman in the house," I cut her off. "I'm doing fine." "Stubborn old man," she muttered, but I heard her. Merritt was always sure I couldn't hear anything if she spoke softly. Another misconception. She stayed longer than usual that day. She helped me with the garden, even made me lunch. I remember her asking where I kept important documents. "Why do you want them?" I asked. "Just need to know, Dad. Just in case." I showed her the safe in my office. I didn't open it. I just showed her. It held the deeds to the house, the insurance policies, the will I'd made when Eleanor was alive, and some jewelry that had belonged to her. I never kept cash in the safe. All the money was in a bank account. Only Merritt knew the code to the safe in case something happened to me. After that visit, I started to notice strange things. My desk in the study, papers weren't laid out the way I'd left them. The drawers of the dresser in the bedroom were slightly pulled out. And one day, I noticed that my checkbook wasn't where I'd left it. At first, I chalked it up to senile paranoia. Then I started to doubt it. I started memorizing exactly where I put things, even making inconspicuous pencil marks on the corners of documents. 2 weeks ago, Merritt called and said she and Harlan wanted to stop by on Sunday. "We have news, Daddy," she said with an unusual warmth in her voice. Good news. I was wary. The last time Merritt had good news, she'd announced that she'd found a place for me in a nursing home. On Sunday, they arrived dressed up, Harlan in a new suit, Merritt in a dress I'd never seen before. "We decided to take a vacation, Daddy," she said, radiant. "It's been a long time since we've vacationed together." "Congratulations," I said. "Where are you going?" They looked at each other as if they hadn't expected that question. "We haven't decided yet," Harlan said quickly. "Maybe to the coast." Merritt was unusually thoughtful that day. She asked me how I was feeling, if I needed anything, even offered to stay the night. "It's okay," I said. "You don't have to babysit me." As they were leaving, Merritt suddenly hugged me awkwardly, as if she were hugging a mannequin. She smelled of the same perfume that Eleanor had smelled when she was young. Strange that I hadn't noticed it before. "Take care of yourself, Papa," she said. "If you need anything, call me." 3 days after their visit, I decided to check my bank account. Not that I had any particular suspicions, just a hunch. I rarely checked the balance. The money had been lying untouched for years, and I knew the exact amount. $35,420.17. It was enough for the surgery and the rehab afterward. The ATM gave me a check with the balance, $832.40. I reread the numbers several times, thinking I'd made a mistake. Then I asked for last month's statement. There was only one withdrawal, $34,588, exactly 1 week ago, the day Merritt and Harlan had arrived with the good news. I stood in front of the ATM, holding the check, and felt something die inside me. Not hope, that had been gone for a long time. Rather, the last vestiges of faith that my daughter loved me after all. At home, I called the bank. The polite young man on the other end of the line confirmed that the money had been withdrawn from my account through online banking. It required my password. Password. I always used the same one, Eleanor's birthday and the first letters of her name. I even wrote it down on a piece of paper I kept in the safe that Merritt knew the code to. That night I couldn't sleep, sitting in a chair by the window, looking out at the dark street, thinking about how we'd gotten to this point. When had my daughter turned into a man capable of stealing money from her own father? Money that his life depended on? Maybe she didn't know about the diagnosis. Maybe she thought those savings were just sitting idle. But even so, how can you just take someone else's money? Money that I've been saving all my life. The next day, I called Merritt. The call went to voicemail. I called her at work. The receptionist said Mrs. Ellington, Harlan's last name, was taking 2 weeks off. I called Merritt's neighbor, Brenda, with whom I sometimes had a word when I visited my daughter. "Oh, Mr. Beckett," she said enthusiastically, "you must be very proud of Merritt and Harlan. Such a spontaneous decision to go to Hawaii. I would never have done it without preparation. Hawaii. Not maybe the coast. Hawaii." "Yes," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Very spontaneous." They were so excited to go. Harlan even said it would be the best vacation of their lives. I bet it was. On me. At that moment, something broke inside me completely. All these years I'd thought Merritt was just cold to me, that she was uncomfortable around her elderly father. But that wasn't it. She was just waiting for the moment when she could capitalize. I thanked Brenda and hung up the phone. Then I sat down at my desk and started writing a list of things that needed to be done. Merritt was wrong if she thought I was a helpless old man who could be robbed with impunity. I'm not the kind of man who gives up without a fight. All my life I've been solving problems, first as an engineer, then as a husband and father, now as an old man who has to fight with his own body every morning. But my daughter's betrayal was too hard a blow. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I sat in my old armchair holding the photograph of Eleanor and me holding the newborn Merritt. Eleanor's face glowed with such happiness that even now, looking at the picture, I felt warm. I looked scared and proud at the same time. We lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, and I worked 60 hours a week to provide for my family. "What happened to that little girl?" I asked the photograph. There was no answer, of course. In the morning, at first light, I went to see my neighbor across the street, Violet Temple. She's 86 and she knows everything that goes on in our street. Not because she peeps. It's just that her living room windows face the road and she spends most of her day in her armchair with her knitting and audiobooks. "Freeland," she exclaimed as she opened the door. "What a pleasant surprise. Come in, I've just made tea." Violet's house smelled of cinnamon and old books. She'd lived alone since her husband Ronald died 15 years ago. They had no children, only nephews who visited her at Christmas. "Violet," I began as we settled into her cozy living room, "have you noticed anything unusual lately? Maybe you've seen someone come to my house." She squinted, looking at me over her glasses. "Is something wrong, Freeland?" I didn't want to tell her about the theft. It was too humiliating to admit that my own daughter had stolen from me. Just something was missing from the house. Nothing serious. Violet set the cup on the table and leaned back in her chair. "Your daughter came by last week Tuesday. I saw her car. She stayed with you for about an hour, then she left. She also came by early Friday morning. You were probably still asleep." "Friday?" I was tense. "Are you sure?" "Positive. I was just putting in my hearing aid and I heard an engine noise. I looked out the window, her silver car. She came in using your key. She stayed about 20 minutes, no more than that. When she came out, she was carrying some kind of envelope or folder, a big one. So that's it. Friday's the day before the money disappeared from my account. She must have gotten my bank account information." "Thank you, Violet," I said, getting up. "You've been a great help. Freeland," her voice became serious. "Whatever happens, remember that you're not alone. I know we all live on our own now, but back in our day, neighbors were like family." I nodded, touched by her words. Violet was right when Eleanor and I first moved into the neighborhood. All the neighbors knew each other, helped each other in times of need. Now most of those people have died or moved away, and the new tenants don't even say hello when they meet. Back home, I began my search. If Merritt had really been here on Friday and taken something, I needed to figure out what it was. I methodically searched desk drawers, closets, all the places where I kept documents. Everything in the safe was there: house deeds, insurance policies, will. But the last page of the bank statements was missing, the one with the account number and balance. Also missing was a sheet with the online banking password. Next, I checked my computer. I rarely use it, preferring newspapers and books, but I do occasionally check email and news. The browser history showed that someone had accessed my bank's website on Friday, just when Violet said Merritt was at my house. It was all adding up. She came in while I was sleeping, took my account information and password, then used my computer to log into online banking. Then the next day, Saturday, she wired the money. I tried to remember if there was anything unusual about her behavior in recent weeks. She started calling more often, inquiring about my health, even offering to help around the house. I thought she was finally starting to show daughterly concern, but she was just setting the stage for the theft. Anger and resentment overwhelmed me. I called her again, to no avail. Harlan's phone wasn't answering either. I needed more information. I got dressed and drove to the bank where I kept my account. The nice girl behind the counter, Tiffany, knew me. I came in every month to withdraw cash for operating expenses. "Mr. Beckett, nice to see you," she said with a smile. "What can I do for you?" "I need information about a withdrawal from my account," I said. "A large one, last week." Her smile became strained. "Sure, let's check it out. Can I see your ID?" I handed her my driver's license and she started typing something on the computer. "Yeah, I see the transaction. $34,588. Transferred to an account at First National Bank. The account is in the name of Merritt Ellington." "That's my daughter," I said. "She had no right to transfer that money. I want it back." Tiffany looked embarrassed. "Mr. Beckett, the transaction was made through your online banking account using your password. According to our policy, this confirms that you authorized the transfer." "She stole my password." I raised my voice, and several people in the room turned in our direction. "That's stealing." "Sir, please keep your voice down." Tiffany looked around, obviously searching for the guards with her eyes. "If you think you've been a victim of fraud, you need to go to the police and file a formal report. The bank will investigate, but I must warn you, it could take several weeks. A few weeks. And Merritt and Harlan are enjoying life in Hawaii right now, spending my money." "Can I at least block any further transfers?" I asked. "Sure," Tiffany replied. "We can change your account password and install additional security." We did that, and half an hour later I walked out of the bank with a new password and the feeling that I had done something. But the main problem remained. My money had been stolen and the perpetrators were enjoying impunity. On the way home, I stopped by to see Paul Norton, an old colleague of mine from the building department. Paul was 10 years younger than me, but also already retired. We weren't close friends, but we kept in touch. We had lunch together once a month, sometimes played chess. The door was opened by his wife, Gloria, a full woman with kind eyes. "Freeland. What a surprise. Paul's in the garage, tinkering with his boat. Come on in, I'll get him." I sat on the couch in the living room, looking at the pictures on the walls. Paul and Gloria with their children and grandchildren, a happy, close-knit family. I felt bitter at the thought that I would never have that. "Freeland, you old sea wolf." Paul came in, wiping his hands with a rag. "What are you doing here?" "I need some advice, Paul," I said, "and maybe some help." I told him everything, the diagnosis, the money, Merritt's betrayal. He listened without interrupting, his face growing darker and darker. "Damn it, Freeland," he said when I was done. I don't even know what to say. My own daughter." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "The police, lawyer, or just accept it." Paul shook his head. "Deal with it? No. It's your money, your life on the line. I'd start with a lawyer. My son has a good friend who practices family law. I can arrange a meeting." "Thank you," I said. "And about the surgery? You don't know anyone in the medical community? Maybe there's a way to do it cheaper or in installments." "I'd have to find out," Paul said thoughtfully. "Gloria's niece works at St. Mary's. We could ask her." We talked for another hour or so. Paul offered to lend me some money, but I declined. This was my battle, and I didn't want to drag my friends into it. As I was about to leave, Gloria, who had been in the kitchen the whole time, came up to me. "Freeland, I've been thinking, Merritt and Harlan couldn't just fly to Hawaii. They'd have to book a hotel, tickets. Maybe if we knew exactly where they were staying, we could contact them." I looked at her gratefully. Gloria had always been a practical woman. "That would be a good idea. But how to find out? Maybe through mutual acquaintances?" Paul suggested. Merritt had friends she could tell. I thought of Brenda, Merritt's neighbor from the day before. "Maybe," I said. "I'll give it a try." Back home, I called Brenda again. She was glad to hear from me. She seemed bored alone. "Mr. Beckett, how are you? Anything else you need to tell Merritt when she gets back?" "Actually, Brenda, I'm trying to reach her. It's urgent. Do you know what hotel they're staying at in Hawaii? Oh, let me see. She paused. Merritt said something before she left. Something about Waikiki or something like that. That's the beach there, isn't it? Yes. On Oahu, I was there once with Eleanor on our 20th anniversary. Do you remember the name of the hotel? No. I'm sorry. But she said it was a very expensive place, right on the beach. Of course it was expensive. For my money. Thank you, Brenda. That's something. What happened? If it's no secret. Nothing serious, I hope. It's a matter of life and death, I said dryly. Literally. After talking to Brenda, I sat down at my computer and started looking up information on hotels in Waikiki. There were a lot of them and all really expensive. Merritt and Harlan could have been in any of them. I decided to take a different course of action. I went to Merritt's social media page. She rarely posted anything, but maybe she couldn't resist bragging about her vacation. And I was right. A sudden decision is the best decision. Hawaii, here we come. Read a post from Saturday. Attached to it was a picture of Merritt and Harlan at the airport with tags on their suitcases. I zoomed in and was able to make out the name of the airline, Hawaiian Airlines. In the comments below the post was a correspondence with some Ashley, apparently Merritt's co-worker. Wow, cool. What hotel? Ashley asked. Hawaiian Royal, right on Waikiki. Ocean View Room, Merritt replied. I quickly found the hotel's website. The Hawaiian Royal was one of the most luxurious on Waikiki. An Ocean View Room cost about $500 a night. I tried to call the hotel directly, but the receptionist refused to connect me to a room without a guest name. Can I leave a message for Merritt and Harlan Ellington? I asked. Of course, sir. What should I say? Tell them Merritt's father called. It's urgent, a matter of life and death. Have him call back as soon as possible. Yes, sir. I'll tell him. I hung up the phone and leaned back in my chair. Now, all I had to do was wait. If Merritt got the message, she should call back. If she had any conscience left. In the evening, I decided to check my bank account again to make sure the new security measures were working. Going to the bank's website, I found that I had a credit card linked to my account in Merritt's name, a card I didn't even know existed. I immediately called the bank. I want to block the credit card linked to my account, I told the operator. Of course, Mr. Beckett. Is the card in your name? No, it's in Merritt Ellington's name. I did not authorize the issuance of this card. There was a pause. Mr. Beckett, there's a record in our system that you authorized an add-on card to your account 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Right when I suffered a minor stroke and Merritt took over my finances for a few weeks. She must have set up the card then without my knowledge. I want it blocked immediately, I said firmly. Of course, sir. The card will be blocked. Do you also want to close the line of credit? Yes, everything associated with this card. And check to see if there are any other cards or accounts tied to mine. The operator checked and said there was nothing else. The card was blocked. That meant Merritt and Harlan could no longer spend money from my account. A small victory, but not enough. The principal had already been transferred to Merritt's account, and it wouldn't be easy to get it back. That night I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I'd gotten to this point in my life. My only daughter had stolen the money needed to save my life and was now enjoying a lavish vacation while I lay here, counting the days until my heart finally gave up. Eleanor would be devastated if she found out about this. She's always believed in Merritt, always defended her when I was too strict. She's just looking for herself, Eleanor said when Merritt dropped out of college. She's young, she needs time, she consoled me when Merritt got involved with that guy, the drug addict before Harlan. But Merritt hasn't been young for a long time. She's 46, and she knew what she was doing when she took my money. I couldn't let her get away with it, not just because of the money, because of the betrayal, because she had trampled on everything Eleanor and I had tried to teach her. I called Paul again that morning. About that lawyer, I said. "Can you arrange a meeting as soon as possible?" "Of course," he replied. "I'll call right away." An hour later, he called back with the news. "Tomorrow, at 10 o'clock in the morning. His office is downtown on Maple Street. His name is Henry Coleridge." "Thanks, Paul. I owe you one. Come on," he said. "That's what friends are for." I spent the day gathering all the documents I could find. Bank statements, deeds to the house, the will. If Merritt thought she could steal from me with impunity, she was sorely mistaken. I was going to fight, and the first step would be to see a lawyer. The morning was overcast with heavy gray clouds in the sky. I could feel my joints aching, a sure sign of impending rain. Nevertheless, I shaved thoroughly, put on my only decent suit and the dark blue tie Eleanor had given me for our last anniversary. Today was the big day. The day I would begin to get justice. Attorney Henry Coleridge's office was located in a modern glass and concrete building in downtown Parma, a place where people like me, elderly people with canes and heart problems, don't usually go. I felt out of place among the rushing young people in expensive suits, coffee in one hand and a phone in the other. At precisely 10 o'clock, I entered the reception area on the 12th floor. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly straight hair and a manicure the color of caked blood, looked up from her computer. "What can I do for you?" "Freeland Beckett. I have an appointment with Mr. Coleridge at 10. She checked her notes. "Yes, Mr. Beckett. Mr. Coleridge is expecting you. Please follow me." We walked down a short hallway to a dark wood door. The secretary knocked, then opened it. "Mr. Beckett, sir." Henry Coleridge was younger than I'd expected, no more than 45 years old, tall, with a neat beard and attentive brown eyes. He stood up from the table and extended his hand to me. "Mr. Beckett, nice to meet you. Paul has told me a lot about you." His handshake was firm but not excessive. He'd obviously considered my age. "Thank you for taking the time," I said, sitting down in the chair across from him. "So," Coleridge said as the secretary walked out, closing the door behind her, "Paul mentioned that you were having family problems. What exactly happened?" I told him everything. The diagnosis, the money, Merritt's betrayal. He listened without interrupting, making notes in a small notebook. His face remained impenetrable, with only the occasional wrinkle between his eyebrows. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. "Mr. Beckett, I'm not going to beat around the bush. The situation is complicated. Your daughter technically committed theft by using your password without authorization. But it would be difficult to prove, especially since she's your next of kin and could claim you gave her permission to use the funds." "I would never—" "I understand," he interrupted me gently. "But in a court of law, it would be your word against hers. And unfortunately, in such cases, the question of the capacity of the elderly often comes up." I felt the color come to my face. "I'm sane. My doctor will attest to that." "I'm sure he will," Coleridge nodded. "But litigation can take months, even years. And you, as I understand it, need a decision as soon as possible because of your health." He was right. I didn't have time for long trials. "What do you suggest?" Coleridge tapped his pen on his notepad. "A few steps. First, immediately freeze all credit cards associated with your accounts if you haven't already done so. Second, amend your will to exclude your daughter from inheritance. Third, write a formal demand for a refund. If she ignores it, we can file a theft report with the police." "I've already blocked one card I didn't even know existed," I said, "but I need to check if there are any others." "Okay, let's call your bank right now and check." Coleridge dialed the number and put it on speakerphone. After the standard identification procedures, we found out that in addition to the already blocked credit card in Merritt's name, there was another debit card linked to my account in the name of Harlan Ellington. I felt my insides boiling. These two were thoroughly prepared to rip me off. "Block that card immediately," I said to the bank teller. And check if there are any other accounts or cards associated with my name that I don't know about. The check showed that there was nothing else. Both cards were blocked. Great, Coleridge said when we were done talking. Now about the will. Do you have a copy of the current one with you? I pulled out a document I hadn't reviewed since Eleanor's death. According to it, all my property was to go to Merritt when I died. I want to exclude her completely, I said firmly. And Harlan too, of course. To whom would you like to leave your property? I wondered. I had no other close relatives. My brothers and sisters were long dead, my nieces and nephews were scattered across the country, and I had no contact with them. Maybe a charitable foundation, something to do with helping the elderly or medical research for heart disease? Coleridge nodded. That's a good option. I can recommend some reputable organizations. Or we could point to the local St. Mary's Hospital. They have a cardiology department and a program to help indigent patients. That would be fine, I agreed. And another thing. I want to leave something for Paul and Gloria Norton. They're good friends and they're supporting me now. Sure. We can specify a specific amount or a percentage of the total value of the estate. We spent the next hour discussing the details of the new will. Coleridge patiently explained the legal intricacies, and I tried not to miss anything important. In the end, we came to an agreement. 80% of my estate would go to St. Mary's Hospital, 15% to Paul and Gloria, and the remaining 5% to cover funeral expenses. I'll have the document ready by tomorrow, Coleridge said. Will you be able to come and sign it? Yes, of course. Now, about the refund claim. I'll draft a formal letter on your behalf. We'll mail it to your daughter's home address, and also to her email if you have one. I do. I dictated the address to him, but they're in Hawaii right now. I'm not sure they check their mail. That's not a problem. The important thing is to document the fact that the demand was made. It'll be important if the case goes to trial. When all the formalities had been discussed, Coleridge escorted me out. Mr. Beckett, one more question. You mentioned that you need heart surgery. What does your doctor say about the timing? The sooner the better, I answered. But you can't do it without money. I know some good cardiologists who work with charity programs. They might be able to help. I'll contact them and let you know. I was touched by his involvement. Thank you, Mr. Coleridge. You've been very helpful. Please call me Henry, and don't thank me too soon. We're just getting started. As I left the office building, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in days, I had done something concrete to protect myself. It might not give me my money back immediately, but at least Merritt and Harlan would no longer be able to use my funds. I decided to stop by the bank in person to see if the card blocking had actually occurred. The branch was only 2 blocks from Coleridge's office. Tiffany, the same employee who had helped me earlier, greeted me with a smile. Mr. Beckett, what can I do for you today? I want to check to see if the cards linked to my account are actually blocked. She checked the information on the computer. Yes, both cards are blocked. A credit card in the name of Merritt Ellington and a debit card in the name of Harlan Ellington. They can no longer be used. Great. And one more request. I want to be notified of any attempts to use these cards or withdrawals from my account. Of course, I'll set up that service. You will receive SMS notifications on your phone. Tiffany quickly set up the notifications and I thanked her. Now all I had to do was wait for Merritt and Harlan's reaction when they discovered that their cards no longer worked. When I returned home, I found 3 missed calls from an unknown number. My intuition told me it was Merritt. Apparently, she had already tried to use the card and was rejected. The phone rang again as I was taking off my coat. Same unknown number. Freeland Beckett, I answered, trying to keep my voice calm. Daddy! Merritt's voice was strained. What's going on? My card doesn't work. Really? I didn't try to hide my sarcasm. What a nuisance. Did you do this? Did you block my card? Your card? I felt a wave of anger rising inside. A card tied to my account that I didn't even know existed? Yeah, I blocked it. And Harlan's card, too. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Merritt spoke up, softer. Dad, look, I can explain. Really? Can you explain why you stole $34,588 from my account? The money I was saving for my heart surgery. Money that I'll probably be dead within a year. Surgery. Her voice shook. What surgery? You didn't say anything. You didn't ask. I was practically screaming. You just took the money and flew to Hawaii with this husband of yours. Money I've been saving my whole life. We were going to pay it back. Now she raised her voice too. It was a temporary loan. Harlan's expecting a big commission on the sale of that house in Lakewood. We'd pay back every dime. A loan? I laughed bitterly. People ask permission before they borrow. You didn't. You stole. Daddy, please, she said, a pleading tone in her voice. We're stuck here with no money. We can't pay for the hotel, the food, not even return tickets. Maybe you should call the police. I suggested it. Tell them you stole money from an old man and now you can't go home. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. You can't just leave us here. Why not? You left me to die. There was silence again. I could hear Merritt breathing heavily. What do you want? She finally asked. I want my money back, every dime of it. Okay, she agreed quickly. As soon as we get home. We'll sell the car if we have to, but right now we need at least the money for the tickets back. No, I said firmly. No, as soon as. Transfer the money to my account now, and I'll unblock your card so you can get back. But we don't have that kind of money right now. Dad, be reasonable. Reasonable? I felt my heart start to beat faster and forced myself to take a deep breath. You want to talk about being reasonable? Okay. Here's what I did today besides blocking your cards. I hired a lawyer and rewrote the will. You and Harlan will never get another dime of my inheritance. No house, no savings, nothing. Everything will go to St. Mary's and my friends, Paul and Gloria Norton. You can't do that. There was shock and panic in her voice. I'm your only daughter. The daughter who stole the money needed to save her father's life. A daughter who is now enjoying a luxurious vacation with that money. Such a daughter doesn't deserve an inheritance. It's not fair, she was crying now. Harlan and I have taken care of you all these years, visiting you, calling you. Out of duty, not love, I interrupted her. And the care was to talk me into selling the house and moving into a nursing home so you could get the money from the sale. That's not true, she sobbed. We wanted you to be safe. Supervised. Under control, I corrected. Closer to you, so you could keep an eye on my money. Well, it's too late now. The decision's been made. You can't just disinherit me. I'll contest the will. You can try, I said calmly, but my lawyer is sure it'll be all right, especially since we have proof of the theft. Merritt was silent, apparently thinking about the situation. What do you want? She finally asked, without tears, in a cold, businesslike tone. Do you want us to return the money? Yes, every cent. And I want you to apologize. I want you to apologize, and I want you to admit that you did something terrible. And then you'll reinstate the will? I paused. I had no plans to revive the will. Merritt's actions had shown her true colors, and I didn't want her to get anything after I died. But right now, I needed to get the money back for the surgery. Maybe, I answered evasively. Get the money back first, then we'll talk. But how are we supposed to get it back? We can't transfer what we don't have, and we can't go home without the money. That's your problem, not mine. You find a way to steal the money, find a way to get it back. Are you really going to leave us here? Your own daughter? You left me for dead, I reminded you. I guess we're even. Dad, listen, her tone changed again, begging. Give us at least enough for the return tickets. We'll come home and start raising money right away. Sell the car, take out a loan, anything. But we can't do that while stuck in Hawaii. I've been thinking, maybe this was a reasonable compromise. If they came back, it would be easier for me to charge them, and I'd be able to make sure they actually took steps to pay back what they owed. How much are the tickets? About $1,000 for two, she answered quickly. Plus a little more for a cab to the airport and food. $1,500, I said after a pause. I'll unlock your card with a limit of $1,500, just for tickets and essential expenses. But as soon as you get back, I expect a full refund of the entire amount. One more thing, Merritt. Yes? If you don't return the money within a week of your return, I'll file a theft report with the police. I have all the evidence, and believe me, I won't stop, even if you are my daughter. You wouldn't do that. There was uncertainty in her voice. You wouldn't dishonor your own family. You've already dishonored our family, I replied. I'll just make it public. 1 week, Merritt. It's either money or the police. And don't think I'm bluffing. I could hear her quietly discussing something with Harlan with her hand over the receiver. Okay, she finally said. Unlock the card. We'll be back on the next flight and start collecting the money right away. I'll be waiting, I said, and hung up. An hour later, I called the bank and asked to partially unblock Merritt's card with a limit of $1,500. The bank employee warned me that this was an unusual procedure, but agreed to fulfill my request. Now it was up to Merritt and Harlan. Would they come back? Would they keep their promise? I wasn't sure, but one thing was certain. I would no longer blindly trust the daughter who had betrayed me, and if I had to, I would indeed go to the police. Family or no family, some things can't be forgiven. The next morning, I woke up with the feeling that something had changed, not in my bedroom with its worn wallpaper and creaky floor, but in myself. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel helpless. Yes, my money had still been stolen, and yes, without surgery, my prospects were bleak. But I was no longer a victim of circumstance. I had taken action, and now control, at least in part, had returned to me. I ate breakfast, popped my pills, and decided to call the hotel in Hawaii to see if Merritt and Harlan had used the unlocked card. Hawaiian Royal, how may I help you? A pleasant female voice with a slight accent answered. Good morning, I said. I would like to know if there are any guests by the last name of Ellington still staying at your hotel, Merritt and Harlan Ellington. Just a moment, I'll check. There was a brief pause. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Ellington are still registered with us. Would you like to leave a message? No, thank you. Can you tell me if they've paid their bill yet? I'm afraid I can't give that information, sir. It's confidential. Of course I understand. Thank you for your help. So they're still there. I wonder if they've already booked their return tickets as promised. Or are they spending the amount I've authorized for the last few days of their vacation? Either way, I needed to move on. Today I was to sign a new will with Henry Coleridge. The appointment was set for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. As I was getting ready, the phone rang. It was Paul. Freeland, how are you? Did you meet Henry? Yeah, yesterday. I'm going to sign the new will today. How'd he seem? Did he seem competent to you? More than competent. Thanks for the recommendation, Paul. You're welcome. Listen, Gloria and I were thinking, maybe you should have dinner with us tonight. Nothing fancy, just some home-cooked food and company. I hesitated. Since Eleanor's death, I'd rarely gone out for dinner, preferring quiet evenings alone. But now the prospect of spending an evening alone, brooding over my daughter's betrayal, didn't seem appealing. I'd love to, I said. What time should I be there? Around 6? Gloria's making her famous lasagna. I look forward to it. After talking to Paul, I decided to walk to the post office to mail some bills. The day was clear and the fresh air helped me think. On the way, I met Violet Temple, my elderly neighbor. She was walking her tiny Yorkshire Terrier, Toby. Freeland! She waved her cane at me. How are you today? Not bad, Violet. And you? Oh, nothing much. Arthritis is bothering me as usual. But the sun's out, and that's a good thing. We were standing on the sidewalk exchanging the usual neighborly pleasantries when Violet suddenly said, "By the way, Brenda Hopkins, your daughter's neighbor, called me last night. Said Merritt called her from Hawaii and asked to borrow $2,000. Can you believe that? I'm tense." "Really? What about Brenda?" "She said she didn't have that kind of money. And you know what the weirdest part is? Merritt then called a few other neighbors with the same request. Jean Kowalski, Margaret Pearson. They all said no. What's going on, Freeland? Is Merritt in financial trouble?" I didn't want to talk about family problems, but Violet already knew too much. Let's just say she and Harlan ended up in Hawaii on a shoestring budget. Violet squinted at me. "And that had something to do with what was missing from your house?" Shrewd old lady. Never misses a thing. "Maybe," I answered evasively. "Have you heard anything else?" "Just that they're desperate." Brenda said Merritt was even crying into the phone. Said they couldn't go home without the money. So the $1,500 I let them spend wasn't enough? Or were they just trying to raise more money so they wouldn't have to pay me back what they stole? Thanks for the information, Violet. I should get going. Sure, honey. And you know what? Whatever happens between you and Merritt, remember, blood is thicker than water. I nodded, not wanting to argue. Blood may be thicker than water, but betrayal corrodes even the strongest bonds. At 2 o'clock, I met with Coleridge and signed the new will. It was exactly as we discussed. 80% of my estate went to St. Mary's Hospital, 15 to Paul and Gloria, and 5 for funeral expenses. I also signed a formal request for a refund. I contacted Dr. Rachel Klein at St. Mary's, Henry said. She runs a program to help indigent heart patients. Dr. Klein is willing to meet with you tomorrow to discuss treatment options. I was touched by his involvement. Thank you, Henry. You've been very helpful. In the evening, I went to Paul and Gloria's house for dinner. Their home was warm and cozy, filled with the smells of home-cooked food and the sounds of quiet conversations. Over lasagna, really excellent, we talked about the weather, television shows, and Paul's new boat. "Did you sign the new will?" Paul asked when Gloria served dessert. "Yes, today," I replied. "And I have to say I feel bad about including you in it." "Stop it," Gloria interrupted me. "We're friends, Freeland, and hopefully we'll live a long time, so your will remain just a piece of paper in the closet." "Speaking of long life," Paul said, "did Henry mention that he contacted some doctor about your surgery?" "Yes, with Dr. Klein at St. Mary's. I have an appointment tomorrow." "Oh, great!" Gloria clapped her hands. "See, there's always a solution." As I was about to leave, Gloria took me aside. "Freeland, I have an idea. You remember Martha Jenkins from church? She runs a support group for seniors. They meet once a week at the community center. Maybe you should go." "A support group?" I raised an eyebrow skeptically. "I'm not sure it's for me. Just think about it. People our age gather there, a lot of people living alone, a lot of people with health problems or kids. Sometimes it helps to just talk to those who really understand." When I got home, I found 2 missed calls from an unknown number. Hawaii again. I didn't call back. In the morning, I met with Dr. Rachel Klein at St. Mary's Hospital. She appeared to be an energetic, middle-aged woman with short brown hair and an attentive gaze. "Mr. Beckett, nice to meet you. Henry Coleridge has told me a lot about you." I told her about my diagnosis and handed her copies of my test results. "Yes, a classic case of aortic valve stenosis," she said, looking at the documents. "Surgery is really necessary, and the sooner the better." Dr. Klein told me about an assistance program for patients who can't afford the full cost of treatment. According to her, I had a good chance of getting a significant discount, but I would still have to contribute about $8,000 to $10,000. "There is another opportunity," she added. "We are launching a new clinical trial program for a minimally invasive valve replacement technique. Patients participating in the trial get the surgery for free. But, of course, it's an experimental procedure with its own risks. I picked up brochures with information about both programs, thanked Dr. Klein, and promised to consider my options. On the way home, I stopped by the community center Gloria had mentioned. The administrator told me about the Martha Jenkins Group, which not only provided emotional support for seniors, but also did projects ranging from mutual aid to charity work. "There's a meeting just around the corner tomorrow. Would you like to sign up?" she asked. "Okay, sign me up," I agreed, unexpectedly. At home, I found a message from Brenda, Merritt's neighbor. I called her back. "Mr. Beckett, I'm so glad you called. Merritt asked me to get in touch with you. She and Harlan are in a terrible situation." "What's wrong?" I asked, even though I already knew. "They can't go home. The hotel is withholding their belongings because of an unpaid bill, and they have no money for tickets. Merritt said you know about it, but you're not returning her calls." "I unblocked her credit card with a limit of $1,500, I said. "That should have been enough for the tickets." "She says the card doesn't work, something about going over the limit or that the bank has blocked it again." I checked with the bank and found out that Merritt tried to withdraw $4,000, well over the limit, and the security system automatically blocked the card. I asked for it to be unblocked again, with the same limit of $1,500, and sent Merritt a message explaining. In the evening, I sat in my chair looking through brochures from Dr. Klein. The experimental procedure looked promising: less recovery time, less risk of infections, and it was free. But of course, there was an added risk because of its novelty. I was also thinking about a third option, not having the surgery at all. Dr. Lowell said I could have a year without it, maybe less. But a year is not a short time if you use it right. What if I sold my house, paid off my debts, and used the remaining money to travel or do something useful? Help other seniors who are facing problems like the community center administrator said? That thought lingered in my mind. What if I used my remaining time to do something meaningful, something that would leave a mark after me, more important than money for a daughter who never appreciated me? The next day, I showed up for the Martha Jenkins Group meeting. There were about 15 people gathered in a large, bright room, mostly my age or a little younger. "You must be Freeland Beckett." An energetic woman with short gray hair approached me. "I'm Martha Jenkins. Gloria Norton said you might be coming." "Yes, that's me," I shook her hand. "Thank you for letting me join you." I sat in a circle and was surprised to find that the people around me didn't look depressed or miserable, as I'd feared. They were active, outgoing, with a spark of life in their eyes. Martha began the meeting with a brief introduction of all the participants. She then talked about the group's current projects. They helped each other with minor repairs, organized joint shopping trips for those who could not drive, and held charity fairs to raise money for various needs. "Our next project is to help elderly people who can't afford the medical treatment they need," Martha said. "We have partnered with St. Mary's Hospital and the Golden Years Foundation. They provide discounted medical services, and we help with organizational issues and support after treatment." I felt something click inside. This was what I had been looking for: an opportunity to use my experience and my remaining time to help others in a similar situation. After the meeting, I approached Martha and told her about my situation: the diagnosis, the stolen money, the search for new ways to do things. "Freeland, I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said, putting her hand on my shoulder. "But perhaps it's not just a tragedy, but an opportunity to rethink your life and find a new direction." "That's exactly what I'm thinking," I admitted. "I'd like to join your project with the hospital. Maybe I can help others while I decide what to do with my own treatment." "Your help would be welcome," Martha smiled. "We have a meeting with the hospital next Wednesday. Come and we'll discuss how you can get involved." Returning home, I felt a strange calmness and determination. For the first time since the discovery of the theft, I wasn't focused solely on my tragedy and revenge. Instead, I was thinking about the possibilities, about what I could do with the time I had left, whether it was a year or 20 years. A message from Merritt was waiting for me at home. "Thanks for unlocking the card. We've booked our tickets for tomorrow. We'll come back and start collecting money right away. I know you don't believe it, but we're really sorry." I didn't respond. Words were cheap, especially from a man who had already betrayed me, but I was glad they were coming back. It meant the fight for my money could continue. In the meantime, I had a new goal: to help other seniors in difficulty, to use my skills, my experience, my time for something more than just waiting for surgery or death. That night I slept soundly, without the usual heaviness in my chest or thoughts of betrayal. Instead, I thought about the project with the hospital, the people I had met in Martha's group, the new opportunities. Perhaps Merritt's betrayal, as painful as it was the push I needed to come out of my shell of loneliness and find new meaning in life. Not just to survive day to day, but to do something meaningful, to help those in need, to leave behind something more than mere possessions for an ungrateful daughter. Rain was drumming on the roof when I woke up this morning. Typical fall weather in Parma. Gray skies, wet leaves on the sidewalks, the smell of damp earth permeating even through the closed windows. I lay in bed, listening to the steady beat of the drops and thinking about the day ahead. Merritt and Harlan were due back from Hawaii today. Brenda had called last night to let me know that Merritt had contacted her again. They had booked tickets for a flight arriving at the Parma airport at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Merritt asked me to tell her that they would come to my place right away to discuss everything. There was nothing to discuss. I had already made up my mind. They stole my money. Let them give it back. Until then, no talking, no excuses, no tearful apologies. I'm too old for these games. I got up, took a shower, got dressed. The morning ritual unchanged for years. Coffee, toast with jam, pills. Reading the newspaper, which was still delivered every morning, even though most people had long since switched to online news. I appreciated the feel of paper under my fingers, the smell of printing ink, the little joys that make life bearable. At 10 a.m., Martha Jenkins called. "Freeland, good morning. You didn't wake me?" "No, I was up a long time ago. Anything wrong?" "Nothing urgent. I just wanted to remind you about our meeting with St. Mary's on Wednesday. Oh, and, Jim Patterson from our group has offered to help you repair that fence you mentioned. He will be available on Saturday." Jim was a former carpenter, now retired. At the group meeting, we got to talking, and I mentioned that my fence was in need of repair. "That's very kind of him," I said. "But I'm not sure I'll be home on Saturday. My daughter is coming back today, and the situation is complicated." "I understand." Martha's voice was full of sympathy. "If anything changes or you need support, call me anytime." After talking to Martha, I decided that I didn't want to be at home when Merritt and Harlan arrived. I needed a place where I could wait out their visit in peace. I called Dorothy Wilkins, Eleanor's old friend. They'd been friends since high school, and even after Eleanor died, Dorothy and I kept in touch, albeit infrequently. "Dorothy, it's Freeland Beckett." "Freeland! What a pleasant surprise. How's your health?" "I've been better. Listen, Dorothy, I need a favor. Could I stay with you for a few hours this afternoon?" "Of course, darling. Is something the matter?" I briefly told her about the situation with Merritt and the money. Dorothy listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed. "Oh, Freeland, Eleanor would be devastated. She always had so much faith in Merritt." "I know. That's why I don't want to see them today. I don't know if I can keep from saying too much." "Come by at 1 o'clock. I'll make dinner, we can sit and talk. And if Merritt comes looking for you, I'll tell her you came in, but you've gone out and I don't know where." "Thank you, Dorothy. One more favor. If they do come to see you, tell Merritt that she died for me the day she stole my money, that I don't want to see her or speak to her until all the money is returned. Every last dime. That's harsh, Freeland. I could hear the doubt in Dorothy's voice. No tougher than leaving my father to die without the surgery he needed, I replied. I hung up the phone and started to pack. I took my medicine, the book I was reading, and a small package of pictures of Eleanor and little Merritt. I wanted to show them to Dorothy. She liked to reminisce about old times. At 12:30, I left the house and caught a cab to Dorothy's house. She lived in the old part of town, in a Victorian house she had inherited from her parents. The house was too big for a single woman, but Dorothy refused to move, saying it was where her memories lived. Dorothy met me at the door, dressed in a simple blue dress and cardigan. She was 76, but she looked younger her jeans and regular yoga classes. Come in, come in. I made chicken soup and fresh bread. I know you like simple food." We sat down at the kitchen table, covered with an old checkered tablecloth. We ate and talked about nothing: the weather, the books we had recently read, the new cafe that had opened on the main street. We avoided the subject of Merritt, though I sensed that Dorothy wanted to ask for details. After lunch, we moved to the living room. I took out the photographs and we began to look at them. "I remember this day," Dorothy said, pointing to a picture of all of us standing by the lake. It was the summer of '85. Merritt was 6 and she was afraid of the water. Eleanor had spent the day teaching her to swim. And by evening, she didn't want to leave the lake, I added with a smile. We barely got her out when it got dark. "She was always stubborn," Dorothy said. "Just like you." I chuckled. Maybe that was our problem. 2 stubborn people who wouldn't give in. We kept going through the pictures, reminiscing about the past. At one point, Dorothy looked at her watch. "It's almost 4 o'clock. Do you think they were already at your house?" "If their flight arrived on time, they probably have." As if in response to our words, Dorothy's cell phone rang. She picked it up, and I realized from her glance in my direction that it was Merritt. "Yes, darling, he was here." "No, he's gone. I don't know where he went." Dorothy paused, listening. "Merritt, he asked me to tell you something. It won't be pleasant to hear, but he said you died for him the day you stole his money, that he didn't want to see you or talk to you until all the money was returned." I couldn't hear what Merritt answered, but I could see Dorothy's face growing more and more tense. "No, I don't think he's going to change his mind. Yes, I realize you're sorry, but—" Dorothy sighed. "Look, Merritt, I've known you since you were born, and I loved your mother like a sister. So I'll be blunt. What you've done is unforgivable. Your father is old and sick, and that money was his last hope for a normal life. And you and Harlan—" She shook her head. "No, I won't get involved. This is between you two. But if you're truly remorseful, give the money back. Every cent. It's the only way to start over." Dorothy hung up the phone and looked at me. She was crying. She says she and Harlan have already applied to the bank for a loan to get the money back, that they were sorry and didn't realize how serious the situation was. "They understood perfectly well," I said firmly. "Merritt had seen my medications, knew about the doctor's appointments. She just didn't want to think about it because money was more important." "Maybe," Dorothy said softly. "But maybe we should give them a chance to make things right. The only way to make things right is to return the money. Anything else is just empty words." I stayed with Dorothy until evening. We had dinner, watched an old movie on TV. Around 9, I hailed a cab and drove home, hoping Merritt and Harlan had already left. My house was dark when I pulled up. There was no sign of Merritt or Harlan, but there was an envelope lying on the porch. I picked it up and carried it into the house. Inside was a handwritten letter from Merritt. "Dad, I know you don't want to see me, and I understand why. What we did to Harlan is unforgivable. We didn't think about the consequences, about how it would affect your health. It was a terrible, selfish mistake, and we are deeply sorry. We've already applied for a loan and are selling Harlan's car. The bank has promised to respond within a week. As soon as we get the money, we'll pay you back the full amount right away. Please give us a chance to make up for this mistake. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. Just a chance to prove that we are truly sorry. Love, Merit. I reread the letter several times looking for sincerity in it. Could it be that they were truly remorseful? Or was it just an attempt to soften me up so I wouldn't file a police report? Either way, I wasn't going to change my mind. Let them return the money first, and then we'll talk about the possibility of repairing the relationship. If they're truly remorseful, they'll do it without further reminders. I put the letter away in my desk drawer and went to bed. In the morning, I had a meeting with Dr. Klein to discuss the results of more tests and decide if I was a good candidate for the clinical trial program. 2 weeks later, I was sitting on a park bench, enjoying a rare late fall sunny day. Sitting next to me were Martha Jenkins and Jim Patterson. We had just finished a meeting with representatives from St. Mary's Hospital, where we had discussed the details of our group's partnership with the Elderly Patient Assistance Program. A lot has changed in my life in these past 2 weeks. Merritt and Harlan actually got a loan and sold Harlan's car. They paid me back $32,000, not the entire amount, but most of it. They promised to pay the rest within a month. I was surprised that they actually kept their word. Maybe they were genuinely remorseful, but repairing our relationship was not so easy. I still couldn't get over the betrayal, couldn't just pretend it hadn't happened. We communicated through Dorothy. She passed messages both ways. I wasn't ready to face Merritt, wasn't ready to hear her excuses. Maybe in time, but not now. In the meantime, my participation in Martha's group opened up new opportunities. I met people who understood my problems, who didn't judge or give unsolicited advice. People who were simply there for me, willing to help when needed and give space when solitude was required. Dr. Klein approved my participation in a clinical trial program. A month later, I was facing heart valve replacement surgery, free thanks to the pilot program. There was a risk, but the prospect of living another 10 to 15 years of quality life was worth it. "What's on your mind, Freeland?" Martha asked, interrupting my musings. "About life," I answered. "About how strangely it turns. A month ago, I thought I was alone, that my own daughter had betrayed me and that I didn't have much time left. And now you have us," Jim smiled. "And an operation on the horizon, and a whole project that's just beginning." He was right. The project we were discussing with the hospital was ambitious, creating a support system for elderly patients in need of complex surgeries. Not just financial support, but emotional, practical support. Help with transportation, with post-op care, with daily activities during rehabilitation. I offered to use my skills as an engineer to design modifications to the home space. Simple, inexpensive solutions that could make life easier for people after surgery. Ramps, handrails, special fixtures for the bathroom and kitchen. Martha and the rest of the group supported the idea with enthusiasm. "You know, Freeland," Martha said, looking at the children playing in the park, "sometimes the most painful events in our lives lead to unexpected discoveries. What happened to you and Merritt is terrible, but if it hadn't been for that, you wouldn't have come to our group, you wouldn't have started this project. And you wouldn't have made new friends," Jim added. "Real friends." I nodded. They were right. Over the past few weeks, I'd come to realize an important truth. Family isn't necessarily about those you're related to by blood. Family is those who care about you, who support you in times of need, who accept you for who you are. Martha, Jim, Paul and Gloria, Dorothy, even Dr. Klein. They all became my new family. Not a replacement for Eleanor or even Merritt, but something just as valuable. A community of people bound not by obligation, but by genuine concern. "I'm thinking about rewriting the will again," I said, looking at the maple leaves swirling in the air. "Leave the house not to the hospital, but to our project. To set up a small fund to help seniors with medical expenses." "That's a wonderful idea," Martha said. "Your house could be the headquarters of the project. A place where people could get counseling, help, Just talk to someone who understands. What about Merritt? Jim asked. Don't you think you'll leave her something? I wondered. Merritt had returned almost all of the money, showing that she wasn't completely lost to me. But trust had been broken, and I wasn't sure it would ever be fully restored. Maybe a small amount, I finally said, not out of a sense of obligation, but out of a memory of what she had once been. The little girl in the pictures that Eleanor and I had loved so much. We sat in silence, watching the sun slowly sink toward the horizon, coloring the clouds pink and gold. Winter was ahead, cold with short days and long nights, but spring would inevitably come after it. And I hoped to meet it with a new heart valve, with new strength, and with a new understanding of what really matters in life. Not money, not possessions, not even blood ties. It's the people who are there for you in times of need. People who see you not as a burden, not as a source of inheritance, but as a person with their own thoughts, feelings, dreams. People who become your real family when your blood family betrays you. We should go, Martha said, getting up from the bench. It's getting cold. Jim, can you give Freeland a ride home? Sure, Jim nodded. My buggy isn't as comfortable as Harlan's car, but it'll do the job. I smiled. Another little advantage of true friends is that they can joke about painful things without hurting. We walked to the parking lot, discussing plans for the next week. We had an appointment with a lawyer to discuss setting up a foundation, then a visit to Dr. Klein for a pre-op exam, and, of course, another group meeting to continue working on our project. Life went on despite the betrayals and disappointments, and for the first time in a long time, I was glad for it. Glad for every new day, every opportunity to do something meaningful, every minute spent with people who had become my real family.